Right, it's a good evening. Another edition of Live Chats on Monday with me, your host, Ronald Moringai. And today, yes, we're having an international edition. That's why you can see a bit of us being delayed and, of course, connectivity issues coming in to plague us here. I think the Chinese and their 5G networks in Africa are trying to make sure this doesn't happen. But hey, we're watching you and we're going to make this happen whether y'all guys like it or not. But otherwise, welcome to everybody that managed to log in from different parts of the world and those especially that are joining us from Ghana today, where our host is Mr. Michael Osei Sarfo. How are you, sir?
Very fine, thank you, Roland. And how are you
I'm good. I'm good. Thank
on the other
you.
side of Africa?
I am good. I'm good. I'm on the best side of
Great,
Africa.
great.
You are on the hot side of Africa, and I know you're actually doing this from live from your car because
Yes,
I know.
it's interesting. We are still on the same continent, but different time zone.
No, definitely. Like we can notice that you are doing this live from your car. I can tell that traffic in Accra is finding is holding you hostage, is it not?
Hi, Roland.
Yes, yes, I can hear you. You can proceed. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I mean, I can't miss such an opportunity.
No, perfect. And I think we must thank you for obviously going ahead anyway, despite, of course, the technological challenges that we are having. And today, of course, like we've discussed and advertised to everybody out there, we're going to try and talk about the issue of forgiveness. And I think that's one that hits close to your heart for various reasons. But I think before we go into that, I just want to find out for us, especially African children, who have grown up having been wronged by our fathers, and potentially having us done some wrong to our fathers, and to the generation before them. Should we even bother about this whole forgiveness issue? Is it
Right,
something that we should be laboring ourselves on, or can we just move on with life and hopefully become better afterwards? What's your take on that?
right. Thank you very much, Roland. I think the issue of forgiveness is very important, whichever way you look at it, irrespective of whether it's necessary or not. I believe that as an individual, forgiveness in itself is not for the other person, but it will do you, the individual, a lot of good if you're able to reconcile and, if necessary, be able to forgive what has happened in the past. And the issues might not necessarily, you might not get the apology you may expect, but in the long run, if you're able to forgive, it will be good for you, and it can help you in a lot of areas as you progress in life.
And where do we even start with that? Because I ask this because I know a lot of people grow up with a lot of anger issues. I was one of them, and I really had a lot of anger and hatred at some point
Right,
in time to my own dad. But it kind of really hit a point where, as a
right,
result of the word that I heard in church, I had to come to a place of forgiving my dad, and I had a reconciliation session with him. At least 2 weeks
right,
before he died. I think that's something that really just was a blessing on my part that God set up for a time such as that. Now, I'm thinking there's a lot of men out there who have carrying these
right,
issues and full of anger and full of bitterness, as a result of some sort of non-relationship, perhaps, or the
right,
absence of their fathers thereof. How do you think then, in the light of what you're just saying, it
right,
becomes important, imperative to actually dish out that forgiveness?
right, right. Thank you very much, Roland. And probably to help your colleagues or to help our listeners be able to appreciate and put the scenario we are discussing in context. Like most African children, we tend to have experiences where there are some disagreement between our parents. Because of that, it wears over and sort of have a long-term lasting effect on the children. And due to the misunderstanding or misgivings between both parents, kids within the context tend to suffer. Um, Back to your question, whether you know how do you begin to forgive and how do you um, reconcile the whole scenario or the experience you've had. I, for me, my relationship or my Christian relationship helped a lot. I might not know the category of our listenership or our viewership, but I found comfort and I have found relief from my Christian belief in the long run, because it was within this context that I begin to see who I really am, as to what I've heard about myself coming from my dad, and the sort of expectation that you usually have as a young person. So there are a number of scenarios or a number of experiences in the Bible that I studied myself, and based on that, it informed my decision to appreciate that, yes, determining on who you're going to be eventually, your dad or the biological father plays a particular role. So in my situation, I read a few Bible characters and I got some understanding from who their father was, and how the law in the long term, it sort of shed light on who they eventually became. So to go to a few Bible characters like Joseph, we read about Joseph, and we all see how his life turned around eventually. But the question we need to ask ourselves is that, had he not had the father he had, would he have been put in the position that he found himself, for him to be envied by his brothers, sold into slavery, went through all those hardships, for him to eventually be where he ended up being? You go on to read another character like Gideon, who, at a point went to destroy some idols within the community, and the people came to lynch him, and he said, if your God can defend himself, he should come down to defend himself, even though the man was an idol worshiper. We take another Bible character like David, who, probably whilst he was in the wilderness, believed that he had something great to offer. And when Saul came to anoint a king, you know, Samuel, sorry, I beg your pardon, came to anoint a king in his house, he was not even acknowledged, but the experiences he was having in the wilderness was what eventually, made him relevant to the cause that he was eventually going to be on. And finally, and most importantly, we look at the Bible story about Joseph, and we hear in Matthew chapter 1, the Bible says that, and when Joseph found out that Mary was pregnant, he decided to, let her go, without putting her to shame, just paraphrasing. God knows the kind of person you're going to be and orchestrate it in a way that you get the kind of parent that you have. So yes, as a young person, as a young adult or growing up, yes, things may look difficult or things may appear not to be what you expect. But when you look at it from the bigger picture, you realize that some of the experiences that you had sort of push you in a frame of mind that will make you aspire for what you really want to be. So Roland, you have known me for some time, and you've known me before, most of the things that are happening now happen, and the circumstances under which, I wasn't. Based on that kind of experience, it puts my mindset in a particular frame to aspire for certain, heights in life, which ordinarily I wouldn't might have aspired for. So I believe that in understanding one, the role that the father played in the grand scheme of things, and then your faith in interpreting the scenarios that life offers you, can sort of give you a better understanding and make you realize, after all, those conditions, were not there to harm you, but to equip you to be able to face the life challenges. Thank you.
Well, I hear you, and I think for someone who might potentially be listening, that this is really rich stuff, and I really, the stories that you're giving there as well, the references that you're giving, the biblical references, are really something that we can really look up to and think, what, this is something that's inspirational that we have to listen to, take in our lives, and hopefully put it into practice, and be able to forgive our fathers before us. But I'm thinking, for somebody who has gone through what they have gone through in their lives, they think potentially they have gotten all the instincts and the skills that they have as a result of their dad not having been actively part of their lives. And thus it counts as an advantage potentially for what they do in their careers or, in their relationships, whatever it is. If they think, therefore, that, what, I'm still this person anyway, even if I do not forgive, what puts the impetus for the forgiveness factor? You have benefited, you have gained, yes, you've grown, you've gotten other things and other skills that you potentially wouldn't have had daddy been there full time. But you still choose not to forgive, especially as a Christian. what impetus is there then? Why should I bother?
Well, I mean, not to sound very religious, I think sometimes, we need to give people the benefit of the doubt. Especially in my case, most of the time might not be necessarily the best scenario. But when you go back to see the conditions under which some of you may tend to, in the long run, empathize with, or my dad grew up, under very harsh conditions. And most of the time, one can't give what they don't have. You might have those expectations, and especially when we are exposed to other families and other things we see on television, we want to have that as well. But just like if I'm asking you for um, something you don't have, you may have even the desire, you even begin to give that. About giving the person the benefit of the doubt, and also trying to understand the background where he or she came from. It will sort of give you a better insight into why the fellow gave or the fellow acted a particular the way that he did. Now, the reason why that is important is to help you yourself heal. Because if you don't take in that effort and you don't put in that effort to heal yourself and find meaning to the circumstances under which you had those experiences, you may end up rolling over to the next generation because you don't learn to forgive, you don't learn to love, and you may repeat unconsciously known. So, for example, if you grew up being spoken harshly to by your dad, if you have not been put in that situation, I think it's not there. But the moment you are put in a similar situation, what you can offer is what you know. Okay, so if you go to your dad and at the point when he doesn't have the money or he doesn't have the resource and he scolds you, now that maybe you might not be in that scenario with maybe your kids, the moment you are put in that scenario, that is the response that may automatically come. So it is very important to try and reach out and forgive for your own, for your own good.
I get that, and I appreciate that response. And I think just to explore that a bit further, then you touched on some of the potential consequences of not being able to offer up that forgiveness. Are there some potentially that came out in your own life during the time that you had not gotten to a place of actually giving that forgiveness to your dad? Are there some potential consequences, you would say, of unforgiveness that one has to live through if they don't go through that process? Did you get that one? Or should I repeat the question? Looks like you stuck somewhere.
Sorry, if you can come again.
No, I was just saying now, in your previous response, you kind of touched on a bit of what I would say are consequences of not being able to forgive. And I'm trying to think now, is there potentially in your own life? All right, I think we've just lost Michael there. The Ghanaian network is not being kind to us. But I think, okay, he's back online. Yeah, driving through Ghanaian traffic. I know Accra, it took us almost 3 hours drive from the airport to get to the hotel, a distance of no more than 15 kilometers. So you can understand when they say traffic is bad in that place, it really is bad. So, yes, are you back? Are you back? Can you hear me now? Right, he's a bit struggling, I think, with the connectivity there, but I think if you just joined us, you'd know potentially that we are talking today about the issue of forgiveness and the importance thereof. A lot of men out there, a lot of children grow up with a lot of anger issues, especially against their fathers, because their fathers potentially weren't there at the house. They didn't take care of them. They didn't do the financial responsibility that they had to do. They didn't give all they had or all they would have wanted to receive from their fathers. And as a result, there's a lot of anger and a lot of bitterness in most people in our generation. And I think we're trying to explore that as we have this live link with Michael Osei Sarfo joining us all the way from Accra. And I think, as you would have potentially heard earlier, he of course had to deal with this issue himself. And I think that's one thing that really made him to be one of the people that I would invite on this particular platform to speak about this issue of forgiveness, because he has lived it on a practical basis. And I think when you hear the story, of course, the more he talks about it, then you kind of begin to understand just how important that is in his own particular life. But as we cross back to Accra in Ghana, Michael, I think you should just unmute yourself again and try then to respond to this. I think what I was asking earlier is just if there's any potential consequences that you might see if somebody does not forgive their dads before them.
Right. Thank you very much, Roland, and I apologize to your viewers and your listeners for the very bad network. It's very unfortunate. I hope it can be stable for some time. To going back to your first thing, the consequences are varied. I believe that forgiveness in itself is not really for the father or for the individual who's wronged you. Forgiveness in itself is for yourself, for you to heal. And also, I believe that in forgiving someone, you don't necessarily need to get an apology, or the person doesn't necessarily need to, forgive or come and apologize to you before you can forgive. It is a choice, it is a decision that you can make. And once you make that decision, it doesn't really matter whether the person acknowledges what's happened. It is for you to be able to move on from the hurt that you feel. And those things might not come up, you might think you have gone over it, you have moved on with your life. But once you are put in a situation, as I said earlier, or a scenario, because that's all you've known, forgiveness is the first step in going through the traumatic experience that you've been in. Like someone who has experienced war, the conditions under which you grow up, and I tell a number of people I've spoken to about this issue, is that when you're growing up, there isn't really much to compare against. When you're an adult and you face a circumstance, you can infer from other experiences and be able to make a better decision. But when you're growing up, there isn't really much to compare with. So you keep asking, okay, what did I do? What did I do? Or you may form an opinion or a perception which may be very negative. So it is very important to one, forgive for your own good, and then be able to go a step further to discuss it with a respected person who can help you heal. Now, Roland, in getting healing, or in getting over the emotional trauma that you feel, it is very important. I personally tell people that you find someone who can do better. So, because I'm a Christian, majority of my references and my understanding or reasoning on things comes to turn from my faith. So we all believe that the Bible says that our Father in heaven, he created the earth, and he also gave another father on earth to be our biological father. I believe that as you grow along and you find the challenge, or you find a deficiency or a lack of certain ability in your life, it is really up to you to reach out to a father figure in your society, in your church, in your workplace, someone who you've seen has been able to successfully gone through and manage his family. He might not be perfect, but someone who has been able to also manage that. You can submit to that authority and explain your scenario to him, and he can better, help you overcome that, so that you come out of that condition. Because you might not think that it's a big deal, but it's a traumatic experience that has an underlying effect on your long-term relationships with either your spouse, your friends, and associates that you come in contact with.
No, thank you for that. And I think just to extend that a bit further again, there's a lot of people that I've spoken to over the years who've seen their fathers potentially hating their moms, or saying bad things to their mothers, or divorcing their mothers, or doing bad things, bad behavior manifesting against their mothers. And of course, we understand the Christian concept and how we need to be ones that forgive without necessarily even like having the conversation, as you say. Now, when we bring it back to the cultural context, especially for us on our continent here, we're very patriarchal.
Right.
Children cannot necessarily tell their parents what to do, and getting an apology from an elder is literally easier than seeing a car go through two fingers, as it were. So I'm trying to think now, we've got this lopsided mentality as a result of our cultural background. How do we really expect then, if at all, our parents, our fathers who have wronged us and who we have seen do all these things, to actually ask forgiveness from us, their children?
Roland, as you rightly said, it may never happen. And one of the things I've come to experience and decide and make the choice over is that when there is no expectation, there is no disappointment. When there's no expectation, there's no disappointment. If there is the expectation that, the person will come back to you and say, I'm sorry, you will always be in a position of always trying to get that apology, which can be frustrating because you may end up wearing yourself out, you may end up overcompensating, you may end up trying to go overboard, and that emotional state in which you are is detrimental to your own well-being and your own sound mind, personally. Because if anyone who is listening to me, including myself, based on the experiences that we've had, it's very traumatic. So each time you do not forgive, and each time you encounter your dad or the individual, and you are not getting the apology, that you are still going to go through that same emotional roller coaster over and over again. So to have no expectation, if you are lucky and the apology do come, that's great. But if it doesn't come, what do you have to lose? That's my question.
Sure.
Right. What do we have to lose?
So it's true. I think even with the less of the expectation, I think even social workers put it at that as well. When they try to encourage people to reconnect with their dads and their moms who are estranged, whatever, to say, you shouldn't potentially expect too much out of this. Don't expect them to come rushing to hug you. Don't expect them, because it might not happen. And like you say, it might really lead you down an even darker path about your perceptions about them and yourself potentially. Now, we tend to want to forgive as a result of somebody having asked us that question and that forgiveness. And I'm thinking, you, at what point did you decide, what, I'm going to forgive anyway? What was the trigger for you that kind of said, what, this time I really have to just let go of all of this and forgive and move on?
Well, it wasn't an easy decision to come to. I mean, especially Roland, when we met in Ghana, that was really one of the tipping points for me. It was a difficult circumstance, but what I realized is that at a point in an individual's life, you need to make a choice. Do you hold on condition scenario and brood over it every time and apportion blames why you couldn't achieve certain things you couldn't achieve? Because the truth of the matter is, Roland, in the workplace, in career, in the relationship, nobody really would accept, the fact that, you are so and so because of your experience with your parents. Everyone expects you to be good at your job.
Yeah.
Your boss expects you to deliver. Your clients will not accept that, because you were, maltreated by your parent or your dad, that's why you have such a bad attitude towards your business. In your relationships with, let's say, your wife or your future fiance or someone you're looking for to get married to, if you put up a bad character, that emotional pain that the person is going to go through cannot be justified because you tell the person, oh, I had this negative experience growing up. So for the sake of those people you're going to encounter, for the sake of your colleagues, for the sake of the people who may look up to you, it's really important to make that decision. And that was where I thought about it, that at the end of the day, whether I make it in life or not, nobody is going to care whether my dad was there or not, or whether he took care of me or not, or whether he really paid attention. what anybody's going to care about is that were you able to achieve your ambition, your dreams? Were you able to become successful at what you want to do? Those are the things that I focus my attention on. Because the truth of the matter is that there are things that you can't change. Focusing your attention on those things that you can't change will only lead to frustration. So I tend to focus more on the things I can change. And things I can change is making my own decisions, making my own, inferring things that can help me achieve what I want to achieve. And Roland, in my profile, you indicated what I do in a bit. Um, the things I've been able to achieve was because I decided rather not focusing on what I didn't get, to focus on what I can be able to achieve. And that's the solution mentality. To rather focus on what can I do different, what can I do for the phone died. My phone.
Oh, well, you heard it for yourself, folks. The phone died. I think we'll just wait and see if Mr. Sarfo will be able to reconnect potentially with a different phone. But if it doesn't, I think, look, we've kind of talked about a lot of stuff today. And I'm really hoping that, of course, for those that are watching and those that are listening, they really kind of understand and get to see the gist of this issue of forgiveness and why it is imperative, for us to be able to dispense this forgiveness, especially when it's even unsolicited. Ah, he's back. There you go. Yes, sir. You reconnected. How many phones do you have? Just for the record.
Roland, because of work, I have two. I have just two phones. Not because I have too much, but then, yes, for conditions like this, to be able to quickly switch on to the next to keep the conversation going.
No, thank you. I'm glad to see that. So I think what I wanted to find out now is you kind of gave us a real good background on what really transpired before you kind of came to that decision of saying, you know what, I'm going to forgive my father. I'm going to try and move forward and focus on these things that are important in my life. And I'm trying to think now from that point, have you seen a visible difference at all, either in your attitude or in the things that you have focused on from that time of giving that forgiveness? Is there something therefore that you would recommend someone else as a result of seeing that difference?
Yeah, thank you, Roland. I mean, anyone who's been in the scenario that we are talking about would have the same, anger and then disappointment with regards to the situation and how it was handled. Now, if you're not careful, you may be stuck in that quagmire, always referring or always going back to how things could have been, as to how things can be. I think that is more important, to focus on how things can be as to how things could have been. How things went in the past, you can't really do much about it. But how to go forward in being able to achieve what you want to achieve. And, society, education, our culture makes us feel that, yes, our parents do play a very critical and important role. But I've come to realize with time that you are the master of your own life. I remember I asked a few, I made the decision to realize, I thought about it and realized that at the end of the day, if I fail, yes, the few people around me will say, oh, we knew him and we knew the circumstances under which he grew up. So, okay, they will empathize. But the larger society would not care. If you take a wrong decision and let's say you become a social deviant, the few people around you who knew you from childhood may appreciate that, okay, this was what happened in your home, and that's what led to what the condition you find yourself in. But the larger society will not really care. So it's really up to you to really decide, okay, do I want to waste my life and dwell on things that I can't change, or try and find material and information that can help? And Roland, in our time, there's a lot of information available. If you just go on the internet, if you go, you reach out to someone like you, it's really a matter of going towards, because Roland, if I'm sick now, I have very good friends who are mechanics. I won't go to a mechanic. I will look for a doctor to go to. So if you find that there is a problem, rather than dwelling and brooding over the problem, which does not solve anything in the long run, you need to make a step, find information, reach out for material, books, audio tapes, videos, walk up to people, because it is your life. I don't know how hard I can say this. It is your life, and um, no one owes you a better life. That's basically what I can say. No one owes you a better life. You are blessed if you get it, but what if you don't get it?
Right.
What if you don't get it? Are you going to
Right.
complain? Are you going to just, be there and say, oh, because I didn't get it?
Yeah, indeed. What
Right.
if you don't get it? And I think that there's somebody who just commented now on our chat live on Facebook, which I think I'll use as the last question here to say. He says, "For me, forgiveness is easier said than done." What encouragement or what kind of wisdom would you give to this man who finds it easier to say it than actually to do it when you're talking about forgiveness? Did you get that question, Michael? Right, I think we're having that connectivity issue again, bugging us. And thank you for the people that have actually managed to log in and managed to comment and ask questions, etc. We love the interaction. We love to hear from you, of course, during this chat. And even if you're watching next time, yes. Are you back? Can you hear me now?
Oh, I mean,
Right, I think, yeah, we are having a...
I will be pretentious, and I'll be, if I said it's easy.
Right, and again, we've lost Michael, but I think we've heard it. We've kind of gotten the wisdom that we require from today. And I think for me, even the book that I wrote on fatherhood and the relationship between fathers and sons, I think I've tried to emphasize for the most part that, the drive and really the gist of the whole thing is forgiveness. Because if we are not able to render and give that forgiveness out today, especially to our fathers who have erred and done us wrong and not been there for us when we needed them and not given us what we required from them, it's really going to be difficult for us to give our children and our sons a better version of love. If we cannot let go of that which is holding us down from the past, there is really a great risk that we might end up actually passing that anger, that bitterness down without actually trying to do it or without willingly or consciously doing that. So I think it's really something, it's a call that I always give. It's a call that I always make out there to say, if you can, please, I beg, really forgive those that have gone before you. They might have done wrong. Yes, like you've heard earlier the speaker say, that potentially what they have had to go through their lives, potentially what they had experienced is influencing what they are doing now. And hence, I think it's incumbent upon you to try and put that behind you. Michael, I think you're back. And for the last question, for the very last question before we let you go today, I want to find out if this question I kind of ask my guests every time they come onto the show. If potentially you had this show being watched everywhere in the world, if everybody in the world right now was listening and watching in, what's the one word, what's the one message that you want to give to the world at this particular point in time? All right, I think we must sue MTN Ghana. Last time I was there, they were claiming to be the best network in Ghana, but I don't think they are living up to that promise today. So I think we should probably just end it here and thank everybody that managed to log in from the different places around the continent, right around this country, and everywhere that you find yourself. I think it's a made a sea from Accra. I'm sure Michael would have loved to say as we close up this day. But otherwise, I think let's meet again next week this time, same same place. race. We are crossing over next week live to Saudi Arabia. We will be talking, obviously, somebody that's based in Dubai, and let's see how we tackle the issue of trying to raise kids and children in different countries and different nationalities. Otherwise, from me, adios. See you next week. Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. I've just closed off now. I think you can just put out your closing remarks if you have any, and then I'll just put it on the edited version going forward.
Right. So thank you very much, Roland. My closing remarks will be that, I mean, to everyone out there, you may not get the apology you are expecting, but I would encourage you to go ahead and forgive anyway, for your own peace and for your own healing, so that you can be able to be better for the next generation, be better for your family, be better for the people you are going to come across or to work with. And in the long run, it is a journey. It's not going to be a one-day event. It will take time. So just identify what works for you and then work towards the forgiving process. So if it means, we getting enough material, reading a lot, interacting with people who can help you better heal, because that's the point, that's the whole idea, to be able to heal and then be able to move, beyond the condition that you find yourself in. So in summary, that's what I'd want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for gracing us your time, man. And I think now you can drive in peace as you go home. And hopefully, until we talk next time, man, you must
Right.
keep well, yeah?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Roland.
All right.
Have a good day.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye. Okay, bye.